when it comes to the acquisition phase, the biggest mistake that people make is they have no clue how to run the numbers.
They literally lost like $500,000 in his portfolio and literally couldn't retire.
The gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening faster than we've ever seen it widen in short-term rental history.
Right. And that's a big question that always comes up when you're looking to acquire.
It's a fundamental aspect of a successful real estate portfolio. Is,
you kind of got to weigh these, pros and cons out when you make these decisions. But
man, we're just seeing so much money being spent, continuing to be spent, and it's being spent at the top of the markets. And it's a pretty fun game to play right now. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and we're back with our Whiskey Wednesday with my main man, Mr. Dave Sabulich.
Hey, buddy.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
This is a little bittersweet for us today.
I know. This is a tough one. This might be the toughest episode we ever had. The first one and this one. This
one, and the old Davey boy has a really good opportunity, and we're super excited for him. But this is gonna be our last Whiskey Wednesday together.
We're gonna sign off after this. I feel like I need to take my shoes off or something and put them on the table. Here? I don't know. What do they do?
Headset. Maybe just we'll put your headset there and your Diet Coke. Mm-hmm. How about this for like the whole rest of the year? At least I'm having a Diet Coke sitting
just
right
at
here,
least,
or a Coke Zero. I say Diet Coke.
Just
Coke
keep
Zero.
Exactly in memory.
Yeah. So everybody's gonna be like, why is this Coke Zero here?
Yeah, I gotta. It's really. This is, like you said, bittersweet for me, but got a really good opportunity. I spent most of my career in the medical supply kind of healthcare world, and I got an opportunity that I can't turn down, and super excited. Really hard to make decisions like this, especially with my best friend and working over the last 3 years and all that we've done with Vodyssey and all the amazing things that are going to continue to keep going. And, you kind of got to weigh these, pros and cons out when you make these decisions. But the best thing about this is you and I are still best friends.
Yeah.
We're still partners in short-term rental. We're still going to keep acquiring properties and kind of move forward with this. And I'm always a Vodyssey, employee at heart. I'm gonna kind of go explore a new opportunity. So
it's, we're excited for you. Yeah. We're excited for it's always scary. New journeys are always scary. We're always like, you and I are like, this is the right thing. Should we not do it? Let's figure that. Like, what do we got to do to figure this out? But hey, those big companies are kind of hard to compete with a little bit for these little guys like us at Vodyssey. They're pretty. They've got some pretty attractive offers.
Yeah,
and so it's and you were. I mean, you were over 20 years, 22 years in that world, just an absolute legend in that world. And people don't forget that very soon. And so, it's nice to be able to have those opportunities. And like you and I were talking about it, like we were saying, to your kids and stuff, we were talking and saying, it's, what do we call it? Like a savings account of opportunity, because you've always done so well at everything you've done. And you've always built such great relationships, and people are like, people remember that, and they want to have you around. And
it's you're in a job interview your whole life, right? Making relationships and being successful and doing the right thing and working hard, and those things pay off. Sometimes they're hard decisions and things you kind of have to consider and so forth. But I want to thank you for allowing me to do this and for the amazing experiences that we've had. We'll continue to keep having amazing experiences together as friends, but, from the business world and that journey, a new chapter starts, but thank you for everything. And also the Vodyssey community. I mean, I have such great friends within that community, such good people. I'm going to truly miss, our interactions on a daily basis and their interactions as well. So
we're going to walk up and down the streets. We went to Nashville last time. They're like, Dave, Shawn, Whiskey Wednesday, we listen to it all the time.
Listen, how those, it's like the big bands, when they have a reunion tour.
We'll have a reunion tour.
You know how they always,
will have
all
one.
Those companies, those bands, they split up and then they come back at some point. You never know.
Hey, if you guys listening would share the show a little bit more, maybe we explode and I can compete with these big guys. I'll just headhunt Dave back, right?
Oh, yeah. So, they're just so you know, Vodyssey, there will be a reunion tour.
Love it. Well, listen, man, you know how much I love you. You know how much I appreciate you. You're my best friend, have been for 15 years now. You're pretty much the only guy that's put up with me for that long. And so, unlike you, like I don't have a savings account of like a whole bunch of people who really love me, like, but you've always loved me for like who I am. And so it's
mutual.
Yeah. So. It's been awesome. And it's not gonna be the same around here without you.
Well, it's been fun.
But we're excited for you.
Yeah. And there's, I'm excited. You and I have strategized for the last, really 6 months on some amazing things for Vodyssey, and super excited about kind of the future that looks like there. And, I'm going to be involved in the community, and you and I are still, partners in properties, and it's going to be fun. So
good. Well, speaking of some of the
short-term rentals
changes in the world, and with all the economy bouncing around, tariffs hitting, and stock market absolutely going crazy. You know, it's
a lot of volatility in that market right now. And I think a lot of people are obviously scared because they have retirement and that's where most people are scared. And I'll tell you a quick story, but I used to work with a guy in 2008, and he was an older gentleman, great in the medical supply world. And he was going to retire, and literally in 2009, 2008 hit, and literally lost like $500,000 in his, portfolio, and literally couldn't retire. He had to wait several more years, and it rebounded and it was fine. But, I think that's a big concern for people right now. And I think that's why, we're such a proponent in short-term rentals and some of that, but
it's people are asking us, what do we think about the real estate market? How is this going to affect it? How's it going to, what's going to happen? And, I don't know. I don't own stocks. I don't even have retirement in stocks. Everything I own is in real estate.
Right.
And one of the reasons I love real estate is it's not as volatile. It does not bounce around. Right. You don't wake up one day and watch your portfolio just tank in value based on market sentiment or report or earnings or tariffs or some policy change.
Right.
It doesn't happen. And so, a lot of Americans put their entire savings and retirement and everything on the line in the stock market, and it's pretty volatile.
Yeah.
And, you don't have any say in it. And I love real estate because when I started really investing, I didn't understand stocks. I still really don't, right? I'm pretty simple. I understand real estate at a very deep level, but that's the only thing I've ever really paid attention to. But it's tangible to me. I can feel it. I can see it. I can touch it. I know what the use is, right? I know what the utility is for it. I can have a direct correlation to the success or the failure of a property. And in the market itself, real estate's not liquid like stocks. So you don't have a major sell-off, right? And so when you have like a real estate crash like we had in 2008 through 10, I mean, you had a couple markets that dropped by 25 or 30%, but there wasn't that many markets that really hit those kind of numbers. But it was over a 3-year run, right? From really 2007 to about 2011-ish. And you're going down 5 or 6 points a year. And sometimes, what's happening now is, somebody's stock portfolio, it takes a big hit depending on what you're in overnight.
Yeah.
And so now the flip side of that coin is real estate usually benefits from things like this. Yeah. And so, nobody wants the economy to go bad, but interest rates are a huge lever in the real estate market, and interest rates have been a little bit higher. They're coming down, and they have an inverse correlation to the economy. When the economy is really good, the interest rates are high.
Yeah.
So when the economy is clicking on all cylinders and everything seems really good, we have, bad interest rates, which means they go up. When the economy is struggling, the interest rates will come down.
Right.
And so because of these struggles, because of some of the things going on, naturally interest rates are going to come down because they're trying to say, hey, listen, let's make sure we kind of spur the economy. Now we're not seeing them drop significantly, but that's a big thing that we've been dealing with as real estate investors for a while.
Right.
And inventory is still low. Demand is still more than supply. And when you start dropping rates, demand's even going to go up. And so you're going to start seeing prices go up again.
Yeah.
And so holding tangible assets like real estate is very attractive right now.
Right.
And these are the times when you don't want these times for anybody because it hurts the economy and hurts everything else. And I think it's all going to bounce back. I think that I would really love to see those tax incentives come back to companies and individuals because that shoe has got to drop or these tariffs don't work, right? I mean, you have to have both shoes drop for it to work.
Well, and I think it'll be just fine. I mean,
it's a long-term deal.
Yeah, it's going to rebound. It's going to find. I think the difference in the last time was Trump went for the tax incentive first and then the tariffs, and he did it kind of backwards. So I think a lot of people are a little worried, but it'll right itself. Yeah. And I also think it's never a better time to get into the short-term rental market. I mean, get in before prices go up. Secure your properties, buy properties in good locations where the equity and the appreciation is going to go up. Yep. Just all the things that we teach, nothing changes on our side. So we love the tangible assets. I mean, our property, if the market goes down, our property is still going to be great. It's in a great area. It's in a popular area.
Like it produces income.
It's going to be just
Consumers
fine.
are spending money. There's a lot of things going on right now. And it's not, I don't think it's, even if you're in the stock market and that's where your investments are, now's not the time to panic, right? These are long-term decisions. These are long-term policies that are trying to, and sometimes you take a couple steps back to take a few steps forward. And so it's, the jury's still out, but you can't panic in these times, especially if you choose to be in a volatile market like stocks, for example, that do react, really quickly to policy changes, news, tariffs, earnings, anything else. And they react pretty significantly, we're seeing. And so now's not the time to panic either. Right. I'm not telling you take all your money out of stocks and put it into real estate. I'm saying I'm really glad I'm in real estate right now, though. And it's the reason why it is because we don't feel those swings like that. And it actually is poised to do better. Tangible assets are always poised to do better during those times of contraction and when things start to slow down a little bit and stocks are not doing well, the economy's not doing well, because we can go then have more opportunities to go buy at better leverage rates and all those different things that are good for us with real estate. And then the flip side, and I'm talking in real estate in general, on the short-term rental side, man, we're just seeing so much money being spent, continuing to be spent, and it's being spent at the top of the markets. And that's a pretty fun game to play right now. Well,
and we've talked about it over the last couple of years pretty consistently, is even when there's something that's going on in the market where, inflation's up, where there's a war, where people are concerned, somebody loses their job, they never not go on vacation. Yeah. They are always going to spend money on vacation. We have friends, we know so many people, they lose their job, they're, got a paid decrease, whatever, they're still going on their vacations.
They still go.
They're still going to their VRBOs and Airbnbs. That's one thing they're not going to give up.
And I'll tell you what the consumer does is, because I know consumers that I'm close to that are doing this right now, and they justify going to Verbos and Airbnbs and short-term rentals, because the reason they justify is saying, well, listen, we're not going to spend it at the hotels. We're going to spend it here. We're going to share it between two families. We don't have to go out to eat.
We can go to Costco. We can get a whole bunch of food. It's going to be so much cheaper.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Even though it's probably not, they justify it because they want to go. Right. Yeah. We will, as consumers, we will pretty much justify any decision to spend, whatever we choose to want to spend on, we'll justify it in our own heads. And sometimes your justification is this is an economical way to travel, which it is, but maybe you should or shouldn't be taking that vacation. That's not the point. The point is the consumer's still going to spend the money.
Well, and it's like, my wife, hopefully she doesn't, listen to this, but that's what I use to try to talk her into going on vacation. I'm like, listen, honey, it won't cost us that much. We're going to stay in a VRBO. We'll go to Costco. We'll just get a whole bunch. We eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. Well, we get to Costco and I'm like, whoa, look at those steaks. Let's get those steaks. We'll cook those on the grill and let's get this and that. And I'm like, by the time you come out of there, you could have eaten at the fanciest steakhouse.
Yeah, that's what Teresa always says. She's like, oh, we won't do this. We won't do this. We won't do this. We're going to do it this way. And then I'm looking at it thinking, okay, but
it's the same price.
She always says, well, we have to eat at home. We're not going to starve at home. So we have to still spend money at home.
True.
So might as well just spend it on vacation, right?
It's awesome.
Here we go.
All right. Well, let's jump into a pretty good topic today. Let's talk about acquiring a property. That's one of our major phases in our Vodyssey, steps that we teach, is acquiring a property. And that's one of the biggest questions that people ask is a lot of different things. You talk about financing, you talk about locations, you talk about, all these things, the process that goes into acquiring a property, because it's really one of the hardest steps. And people really want some guidance on, hey, let's help me with acquiring a property. So let's kind of dive into that.
Yeah. Buying the right property in the right location, right? It's a fundamental aspect of a successful real estate portfolio, is selecting the right markets the right properties that have the potential to make you the money you're trying to make, right? And then, but it comes down to, there's a lot of different things to know about the acquisition phase. And, we're all about the ownership model. So we're buying properties. Well, properties are not cheap. And it's a big decision for anybody, and to be able to go and say, hey, listen, I'm gonna add a property to my portfolio. And so the acquisition phase has a lot of different levels to it and a lot of different layers of what we're really looking at. We're analyzing a bunch of different things. We're analyzing the market and the market potential and the investability and the regulations and all these different, all the different things that we need to know before we even consider a market. And then we've got to take individual properties within that market and say, how are they going to perform?
Right.
What do I need to have amenity-wise? What do I need to have proximity-wise to the major profit drivers? How do I actually analyze this and look at all those numbers? And so when it comes to acquiring those properties, there's just a lot of different things to consider that people need to think about.
Right. And I always tell people, when they're starting this journey, financing is a big thing. So figure out what your capital is, what the down payment is, so that you can decide, okay, when I go to acquire a property, I need to know, at what level that I can, is it $1 million? Is it $500 and so forth. The other thing that is super important, and I know we've talked about a ton, is obviously getting a real estate agent in the area. Real estate agent that understands the area. They understand the right side of the tracks. They can help you with the regulations, and are they zoned correctly? And hey, tell me what your acquisition price is, and I'll start looking at properties that way. So there is a big part of, that acquisition that has a lot of different steps.
Yeah. And once let's say you select the area, right? And you say, hey, listen, I've run the numbers. I understand the analysis on the market itself. I understand the investability of this market. And then you select that right agent. And then you just mentioned, how are we going to finance these properties? Usually people aren't paying cash, but what does it take? Because what happens is a lot of people think about the acquisition side as just their down payment. There's a lot more that you have to have when you're buying short-term rentals to get to the finish line so you can have a producing property. And it's one of the number one questions is, how much is it going to take me to get into this?
Right.
And that is understanding your financing option. Most people are going to do either a second home loan or investment property loan. On the low side, you're going to have 10% down. On the high side, you're going to be 20, 25% down, most likely on most of the investment products. Yeah. But identifying what that product is. But guess what? If you have $100,000 in the bank, that doesn't mean if you're putting 10% down, you can go buy $1 million property, because there's two other things that are a big factor for short-term rentals. The next one is furnishing a property, right? We have to create this unique experience and set this property up for the target audience that will say, hey, listen, I want this above and beyond everything else out there. And so we have to furnish these properties, and you're going to have a cost to that. And so budgeting, how much can I actually afford, is way more than just understanding how much down payment you can afford. Right. Now we have to say, how much is it going to take me to set this property up? With what we do with our Vodyssey signature rooms and everything else, even as dialed in as we have it, we're going to still budget $35 to $40 per square foot to set a property up. Most of the time, that becomes another 10% of your acquisition.
Right.
So if I've got $100,000 now, if I'm putting 10% down, all of a sudden I went thinking that I could buy $1 million property instantly to a $500,000 property. I just cut my purchasing power in half because I've got to get it to the finish line. I've got to get this set up. I've also have to realize after I buy the property, it's going to take me a few months to set it up. It's going to take me a month or so to get it going. It's going to take me a month to launch it. And so I need to have at least the disposable income, or maybe even some additional savings to get me from purchasing the property to before I start making money. And sometimes that's a 3 to 6 month period, depending on when you launch your property. Yeah. So all of a sudden, my $100,000 buying me maybe a $350, $425 property, maybe a $450 property, and not $1 million property that I thought it was going to buy me with 10% down.
And then the next step is delivering that experience with photography.
Yeah.
And setting up those photos. But let me ask you this. What about seasonality? What about seasonal properties in locations? That's a big question that always comes up when you're looking to acquire. Should I be that concerned about a property that's maybe in an area that's only busy 6 months a year, or what does that look like?
No, it's a myth. The seasonality is like you should only buy properties that are operational mostly year round, and the seasonality is going to actually hurt your performance. And the reason it's a myth is because what happens is in really, really seasonal markets, the revenue you generate during the peak season is significant compared to where it drops in the slow season, right? And so if it's like I used to have a property that was only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. But the nightly rates in the summertime were way higher for that period that it was open because everybody wanted to be there, right? And then all of a sudden it drops. If in Orlando, for example, what you're going to have is you're going to have a property that's going to be pretty stable seasonal rates throughout the year because it's not that seasonal. But what happens is you have more wear and tear on your property, lower rates all the way across the board, but way higher occupancy. My property that I was talking about had really high rates, really low occupancy,
less wear and tear,
but roughly the same gross revenue per year, right? Because it spikes so much. So the more seasonality you have, the more you will see a spike during the peak season. And so what happens is you might be making 90, 100% of your revenue or close to during the peak season, where in some of these other markets that have multiple peak seasons or whatever else, it's more spread out throughout the year. But at the end of the day, your running year, your gross revenue can be very similar because of the spike that happens during the peak season. And so, you have to look at how much am I actually making on the property. I would way rather make $100,000 on a property with 30% occupancy than I would make $100,000 on a property with 80% occupancy because almost triple the traffic through my property, way more wear and tear, everything else, check-ins, check-outs, just damage to the property. And I'm making the same amount of money. Give me the one that's way more seasonal, way less occupancy, that's generating that same revenue all day long.
Yeah. There was a member that I had a conversation with a couple months ago, and this is a good example for the seasonality. They have a property in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's super close to Lambeau Field. A couple, I think walking distance is it looked on the listing. And he says he covers the nut for the whole year, his whole expenses in 9 home games. I think he said 9 home games. And, they make $2,000 a night. They book them out for, 3 nights a weekend. And he said it just is amazing. So the rest of the year probably doesn't book out very often just because, maybe there's some music festivals or maybe they're coming to see family, stuff like that in the summer and different things. But, that's a great example of seasonality. It really doesn't matter as long as you set a good experience up for these.
You have 9 home games, so essentially 9 weekends that pays your expenses all year long. I'll take that all day long, right? Because one, it's a major profit driver. The Green Bay Packers are not going anywhere. Lambeau Field is an iconic area. They're not moving. It's not the Oakland Raiders, right? They're having issues. They're staying there. And so you got a major profit driver in an area that pays your bills, but with that really short season during the football season, and that's where I always tell people the decisions come down to running the numbers. When it comes to the acquisition phase, the biggest mistake that people make is they have no clue how to run the numbers. They have no clue. They're just hearing somebody talk about something like we are on a podcast, and then they just assume like, okay, well, that must work or it doesn't work, or hey, I better be in, naturally you're going to say, well, I'm going to be much safer if I have a property that books all year long instead of a short season, but you're really not, right? Run the numbers and decide, and the numbers will tell the story. And when people are in the acquisition phase, especially with short-term rentals, the numbers are harder to run than people realize. There's a lot of easy buttons. There's a lot of tools out there that everybody says, plug your numbers in here and we'll tell you what it's going to make. We've seen year over year, over and over and over, hundreds and hundreds of times, that they're not right. They're not accurate. And I would be, if I was an investor using just those tools off the shelf, you would be in trouble really, really fast. You're just rolling the dice. You might as well just make a guess. Because, and this is where, when it comes to investing and it comes to making decisions and being able to say, what type of property, what type of market do I want to go into in that acquisition phase, you better understand how to run the numbers. You better understand how to read the numbers. And when you are looking at that stuff, be able to read and paint the picture of what it's going to look like for you today and in the future based on all of those different factors that we're going to look at. And that's a big mistake that investors make, is they don't walk into it with their eyes wide open of what to even expect. Yeah.
What about, as they consider buying a home and acquiring, should they consider some of the unique, locations or experiences, tiny homes, log cabins, tree houses, stuff like that? Is that an important part of it?
Absolutely. So what you're trying to decide, okay, after I select an area, now I got to decide what type of property type am I going after? And usually your property type is going to be directly correlated to whatever target audience you want to go after, right? Tiny homes, some of those unique properties are really popular for small groups, like, individual couples, very small groups that are going out. They like them. Even single travelers enjoy those types of properties. Those types of properties can be really high cash flowing properties, but they don't appreciate very well. Yurts don't appreciate. Tiny homes on wheels don't appreciate. True. Right. So you're buying, and they can be a really good option. But you have to think about your whole long-term goals and say, what property type do I want to go after? Townhomes and condos are usually in the middle of the action. They've got really resort style amenities many times. But yet you don't have the autonomy that a single family home would have, and you can't create quite the experience because everybody shares the same amenities. Everybody shares the same proximity, right? And so, and a lot of times they're not huge, and so you can't host big groups. And so, if you're wanting bigger groups, then your single family homes are going to be sometimes your only option. But you have single family homes that are teeny that do well as also and
small.
It really is identifying who's my target audience. What are people coming to this area for? Many areas have multiple profit drivers, right? And so we have to say, okay, who's coming here and what are they coming for? And then create and select the right property type for that group that allows you to create the experience that you really want to for that target audience.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, let's kind of to give a high level on the most important things. Obviously, I would guess one would be setting the goals to create, what you want to create or what your goals are for this property. The second would be finding the right property, the right location, good areas, good properties that are going to appreciate, and then understanding the numbers. Yeah. I mean, those really, there's a lot to it, but those are key three things that they really ought to dial in on.
Absolutely. And a lot of people just make sure in our game, short-term rentals, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening faster than we've ever seen it widen in short-term rental history.
Right.
The top of the market makes all the money, and people like us will crush you if you're going to be in the middle of the market where everybody goes to die. And so a lot of times what places people in the middle of the market is not understanding what they can afford, because they think they can afford more based on just understanding their down payment.
Right.
Make sure that you leave enough in the bank to get you and get that property set up and furnished so that you can operate in the top of the market. And many times that is saying, buy a lesser property or a different area that you can, more than afford what you think, right? Because like I said, sometimes people think they can afford double what they really should be buying to get it to the finish line. And that nicer property that's operating in the middle of the market costs them money. That lesser property that you were able to get to the finish line, set up a unique experience, and really create this crazy experience for somebody is making you positive cash flow, appreciating, and you're really having fun with it. Where one of them, you're really pulling your hair out, right?
Yeah.
And so, understanding what you can afford, and then understanding the potential and the numbers, so you make decisions moving forward.
Yeah. Well, good information. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's good. Good last episode.
That was good. That was a good one. Was it good?
I think so. I think we dove deep in there.
We can hang the headset and the Coke Zero up.
Yeah, the hard part was, did we just keep going? Just keep talking so this doesn't end. But I think it's all good things have to end.
Hey, you never told me that you're never going to come back as a guest appearance.
Oh, freak!
Right, you're just down the road.
You want the ratings up? Bring me back as a guest, not an expert. Bring me back as a guest.
Yeah, and those of you that are listening, you better start sharing the show so I can go headhunting back. Right?
Yeah.
The more you guys share it, the more we grow here at Vodyssey. I can get Dave back. Right?
Heck yeah.
So. All right, guys, we'll wrap it up. We appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is. We hope you got some value out of this episode. If you know somebody else that would like these conversations, share the show. Those things help us, and we can maybe get Dave back a little bit sooner, right? So go share the show, like it, review it on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And then the last and most important thing I ask you guys at the end of every episode, pick the one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodyssey.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.